The following program is an original production of WICC PBS Chicago.
The new Republican governor takes office only to find the hole in Illinois' budget is bigger and badder than ever. How can Bruce Rauner and leading Democrats right a sinking state?
Play it again. There is new demand for vinyl records, and the scratchy sound of vintage music played the old-fashioned way.
And is Chicago closer to choosing a place for the Obama Presidential Library? All these stories and much more tonight on In the Loop. Good evening. I'm Chris Bury.
And I'm Barbara Pinto. Tonight, just days into his new job as governor, Bruce Rauner is finding out the state's budget deficit is much worse than anyone thought.
A new report called Apocalypse Now paints a dire picture of Illinois' financial future.
Governor Rauner said to conduct business as usual in the face of a financial calamity would be morally corrupt.
But with the same leaders still firmly in charge of the legislature, can things ever really change in Springfield?
We need a booming economy that is pro-growth, pro-business, pro-job creation, or we won't have the resources to solve any of our other problems.
And in his inauguration speech, Rauner warned that solving the state's problems will be painful.
We must be united in our willingness to sacrifice and do what is right, even if it is difficult.
The question is, who will have to sacrifice what? John Tillman, CEO of the conservative Illinois Policy Institute and a Rauner supporter, said certain groups will feel the pinch more than others.
One is government workers who receive their wages and benefits through government. They're going to have to sacrifice. The people who receive benefits from government are going to have to sacrifice.
So government employees and residents receiving state aid may have the most to lose. That worries Mays Jackson, executive director of the Illinois Legislative Black Caucus Foundation.
Well, I'm concerned that there may be structural slashes to Department of Human Services, to human services, to things that our community particularly relies upon without an alternative. That really is what scares me.
During the campaign, Rauner said the state should lower income taxes to attract more business. Just days before he was sworn in, Illinois' temporary 5% income tax rate was rolled back to 3.75%. Corporate taxes also went down. But that means Illinois has $2 billion less for its budget this year. Rauner supporters such as John Tillman say that's good for Illinois residents.
That means there's $2 billion that are going to be in the pockets of average taxpayers and businesses in this state. That is money that is going to be able to be reinvested in hiring new workers and helping to create prosperity in the private sector, which in turn helps the public sector.
But Ralph Martiri, executive director of the Center for Tax and Budget Accountability, says that cutting taxes does not guarantee a stronger economy.
There are no data which suggest that tax cuts are an effective way to grow your economy. In fact, the data is contrary to that.
Martiri points to Kansas, where Governor Sam Brownback pushed through significant tax cuts, claiming that they would create thousands of new jobs.
Since 2012, Kansas not only hasn't seen job growth, they've seen job loss. They've not only fallen behind the rest of the nation, they've fallen behind most of their neighbors. In fact, the only thing that's grown in Kansas is their deficit.
Martiri says Governor Rauner cannot cut his way out of Illinois' financial mess. Here's why. In fiscal year 2016, the state's projected revenue will be just short of $32 billion. Meanwhile, expenses, pension payments, and borrowing costs add up to much more than that. A new study from the University of Illinois estimates a budget deficit of $9 billion for the fiscal year that begins in July. And that does not even include the $111 billion that Illinois owes for future pension payments to retired state workers. These staggering numbers put Illinois right on the edge of the fiscal cliff.
Both parties have had a say in this, and it's a long-term problem. It's one that has shadowed the state of Illinois since at least the 1970s.
Martiri argues that instead of cutting taxes, Governor Rauner needs to modernize Illinois' narrow tax base to include more services such as haircuts, lawn care, and auto repairs. That could generate up to $2.5 billion in annual revenue, a tidy sum for a state drowning in debt. And if Rauner expects to get anything done, he'll need to find some common ground with Democratic leaders Madigan and Cullerton, who are still firmly in control of the legislature.
And so I think that he's going to understand that he has to compromise. And if he doesn't understand it, he'll find it out pretty quickly, because I think the speaker is still the speaker.
Today we're joined by Lawrence Masal, president of the Civic Federation. Welcome. And of course, the speaker referred to is Mike Madigan. We have a new Republican governor, but Democratic leaders in the House. Do you sense the political will to deal with this coming apocalypse, as it's called? Do you think the political will is there?
Well, certainly there is in the new governor taking office. Governor Rauner has basically expressed that he's going to not go the easy route. He's going to tell the hard truth. He's going to push the sacrifice that's needed for Illinois to move forward. There's a general sense of optimism with the new year, with a new governor coming in, but our problems have existed for many, many years, and the state's ability to ignore them has surpassed most people's expectations.
We've just seen the income tax now roll back from 5% to 3.75%. Is that making the budget problem worse?
It's putting more pressure on the budget, but there was never a plan when the temporary income tax was created to really live within those means. The budget that Governor Quinn signed into law in May, at the end of May, when the General Assembly adjourned, he, by the governor's own accounts, was shorting the known expenses by almost $500 million. We've used accounting gimmicks and other sleight of hand to really run up the deficit in Illinois. We're in very serious financial trouble. The credit rating agencies, the bond houses are looking at Illinois and threatening further downgrade unless there's a comprehensive approach to stabilize the government.
What about the whole tax cutting approach? We've heard it's had very mixed results in places like Kansas. Can Illinois cut taxes and grow its way out of this financial disaster?
The most important thing for growth is stabilization of the government. Businesses need to know what the return on their investment is going to be. The corrosive thing that has been going on in Illinois is businesses don't know what Illinois is going to do next. A temporary income tax increase that's not tied to a spending plan to live within your means, the threats of all sorts of new taxes on the horizon. Businesses have stopped investing in Illinois because they don't know what the state's going to do next. There can be, it's going to have to be a comprehensive approach. It's going to be sacrifice for everyone. Citizens are going to receive less government services. They're going to pay more in taxes. The state employees are going to receive less generous of a pension benefit, but they're going to get some stabilization, ideally, in getting the government so that it can move forward, so it stops being a drag on our economy.
You say we're going to have to pay more for less.
Right.
And does paying more probably include a tax on services, as we heard, such as haircuts and car repair and things like that?
You know, that really remains to be seen to whether Governor Rauner is going to lead with that. He talked about it in the campaign, the idea of strengthening the base of the sales tax by taxing services. Other states tax more services than Illinois. However, the political reality is it's very difficult to add new businesses to your tax base in terms of taxing new services. But Illinois is in a hugely difficult financial crisis that's going to require all available resources and everyone to commit to stabilizing our state. If not, it's not just the state of Illinois government that's in trouble. The city of Chicago, the Chicago Public Schools face $1 billion budget deficit next year. There's real question whether they can continue to operate under such a system.
You say that everyone's going to get less and pay more. Who's going to feel the pain the most? We heard that it's going to be state workers and people getting some kind of aid from the state. Do you agree that those two groups are going to suffer more than others?
No, because I think all of the taxpayers are going to end up having to pay more and getting less. So it's going to be a joint sacrifice. All of us have a stake in this, right? We can't continue to be the punchline for the rest of the states in terms of economic development efforts. We can't afford not to have a growing economy in Illinois. So that means we are going to, whether or not we change the tax rate, and it could stay at 3.75, but will we get rid of some of the exemptions on the income tax? Will we, like other states in the federal government, tax retirement income? But certainly people who rely on the state of Illinois have a greater stake in what's going on. But all of us who own any property, who have anything of value in the state, who rely on it for our jobs and for our schools, for our children, have a great deal to be paying attention to in Springfield.
And just beyond this immediate budget crisis, of course, standing out there is this pension elephant in the room, $111 billion unfunded pension liabilities. It sounds like an abstraction to a lot of residents. What does it really mean to Illinois residents when you have this gigantic unfunded pension liability?
It's symbolic of what the state has done. It has ignored its actual obligations. It underfunded its pensions as a result of statutory schemes and a willingness to ignore the financial realities, the long-term realities of politically attractive short-term solutions. We borrowed in the best of times to make the pension contribution. With $110 billion, it's an anchor, not only on the state budget and on the state finances, but on the state's economy. We're seeing that Illinois is not growing as fast as the surrounding states. We're not attracting the level of job creation that we should, and it's because of this financial irregularities and the fact that the confidence in our government has never been lower.
On that note, Lawrence, we have to wrap it up. It'll be interesting to see what the Illinois Supreme Court does on that. Now again, we have Barbara with some stories making headlines this week.